All right, guys, good morning and welcome to another Sunday morning Total OS podcast or top podcast. Get it? Total OS podcast top. Anyway, welcome to this morning's show. Hope you're all having a terrific holiday Thanksgiving weekend if you celebrate Thanksgiving. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, that means you're probably skinny. Just a thought. Anyway, welcome. Before we continue, I want to say thank you to all of the contributors to Total OS over the years. Just received another email, a contribution to the channel, to the live shows. This one was from PayPal. Thank you. You guys know who you are. Thank you so much for keeping the live shows going. So this will be a poll, and this will be in two parts. Do we need a global standard Linux desktop? And by the way, you might hear some music in the background. Somebody commented about the music. It's my dad's tunes from Italy. It helps me relax. I have not seen him since summer of 2019, since before the pandemic started. He's just afraid to travel. He has a heart condition. He's very afraid to travel. He's okay. Thank you for those of you who ask. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you. And hope to see him maybe next spring or summer. I don't know. But if you hear music, it's my dad's tunes. Okay, moving along. This will be an informal poll. Do we need a global standard Linux desktop? Now, many of you will watch this on the replay. That's why I wanted to do this in two parts. The part two, the final part, I hope to have some guests on. Hopefully a total of 10 of us. So for this one, those of you who watch this or listen to this on the replay, that's fine. It's been impossible to get a bunch of us together to talk about things. So, yeah. This morning I'm just having some tea. I'm actually going to have another sip. All right, so again, if you watch this on the replay, that's okay. Yeah, just a very simple poll. Do we need a global standard Linux desktop? A simple poll, a simple question. This is something that we've talked about before. If you watch this on the replay, again, many of you will, leave your comments below. Give me 1 second. I'm getting a message here. I'll be right back. Okay. Where was I? Back to the poll. Do we need a global standard Linux desktop? If you have it already, take a look at the two reaction videos I did. It's the LTT videos, the Linus Tech Tip videos. I guess he was trying to install a gaming system. to play Linux, a Linux gaming system, and it's those. He's done 2 videos. I believe it was him and a partner. He did Arch-based, I believe, Manjaro, and his partner did Linux Mint. Those were real life videos. He really didn't do much wrong, in my opinion, because, well, he's new to Linux, and it's real life, and that's what this is all about. You know, we can talk about that in part 2 of this. For my quick thoughts about this, yes, I think we do need a national or a global Linux standard desktop to make things easier. I think that will be a positive thing. We look at the success of Chromebooks, which are a global standard. Of course, Chrome OS, Google-based, Gen 2 Linux, I do believe, and they are widely popular. Top-selling Linux-based Chromebooks. There's one on sale now on the Lenovo website. If you watch this, I believe it's half off, $99 for the holidays. You can't beat that. So you may want to check that out. Let me go to the chat here, see if anybody's here and wants to say hello. All right, Zorin OS is in the house. Welcome. I forgot to mention I'm watching this on my new Christmas toy. I bought myself a toy being a 4K TV. It's my first one. It is not a smart TV. Don't need any more smart devices. I have Alexa, and I believe that is enough to have a smart device. But watching this on the big screen is nice. I am not streaming in 4K. My computer just wouldn't handle it. The processor would not handle it. Dual core. I have a confession to make. I am streaming this in Windows 11 because it's faster than Linux, or at least faster than GNOME, the GNOME desktop for Linux. Windows 11 continues to impress. Yeah, what can I say? The tech story of the year has to be Windows 11. If you're trying Windows 11, let me know. All right, so Farron says more means more room for innovation. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the biggest desktop environment will be the only one that most use. Okay. Shadow 1028 is in the house. Hi, Shadow. Shadow says, no, choice is the strength of Linux. Well, that is a contradiction. And real briefly, I say, if choice is the strength of Linux, and I agree, by not having a choice of a standard desktop, why am I being denied my choice to have that if choice is the strength of Linux? If choice is the strength of Linux, why am I denied my right to have the choice of a standard desktop? If that makes sense. But we'll talk about that in another show. Joseph is in the house. Good morning. Hello, my new laptop is happily running KDE Neon. Cool. I've tested that before. It looks good. Yeah, I have 2 ThinkPads that I don't use anymore, or very little, because I use my Chromebooks. They're faster. Yeah. So, somebody asked me why I don't stream on a Chromebook or on my laptop. Well, I don't like to stream using a small screen. It's not because the Chromebook can't handle it. I just don't like. Now, I could hook up my laptop to my big screen, but nah. I'll just stick with my desktops. Once again, those of you joining late, do check out the 2 reaction videos I did. I don't do a lot of reaction videos, but the 2 videos I did on LTT, Linus Tech Tips, and his real life tribulations trying to install a Linux gaming operating system. Those are real life. That's what probably millions of people have gone through. And looking at the 2 videos that he's done, him and Luke, I don't think he did that much wrong. You know, it's just the way it is. you can't really blame someone for having a hard time installing Linux if there is no choice for a global standard desktop. That he can use that as an example. Sure, a person like LTT or a Windows user can take some advice from me or somebody else on YouTube to get started, but without that foundation, and that foundation being a global standard, even Linus Torvalds, the father of Linux, said it's a mess. And he appreciates Chromebooks. Stan is in the house. Hi. I think application portability is more important than a standard desktop, the latter of which can never have because people have the choice to fork or develop something else. Yeah, I think having a standard desktop would just add to the world of Linux, and I think people would appreciate it more. I don't think it would, when I say a global standard for Linux, I don't mean all of Linux. I mean just having one standard. And it could be based on Arch or Debian or whatever. To me, it doesn't matter. Chromebooks are based on Gentoo. People who buy Chromebooks are not saying, hey, that's based on Gentoo. That's not for me. I mean, that's just not the reality. So you tried Fern OS Live, USB, and the new laptop could not get HDMI audio to work on the external display. Ubuntu 2110 crashes when using printer scanning applications. Briefly, Joseph, I think one of the long-standing weaknesses of Linux has been multimedia, such as gaming, graphics drivers, printers. I'm a little bit surprised still. You're not the only one who's talked about printing. I think printing has gotten better in Linux. I'm actually in the market for a new printer. Maybe when I get one, I'll maybe do a live show on how to hook up a printer to Linux. I use pretty much Ubuntu Mate. And I don't print that much, to be honest. But yeah, it's printing should not be as difficult. It's not as good as Windows still. But yeah, I guess you can say printing is not up to par to what Windows is or Mac. That I would have to agree. But once again, if we had a global standard desktop for Linux, would that not solve the problem, right? It's just a thought. If there is anybody new watching and wants to say hello, please do. Yeah, I've stuck with Ubuntu Mate. It is my Linux gold standard, as it were. It's simple, it just works, and I've been very, very happy with it. So, yeah. So it looks like you've had issues with Arch not booting on a NV SSD for some reason, so you went to KDE Neon. Okay. Once again, if we had a global Linux standard, would all those problems be eliminated? Maybe. I think for a lot of people, or for some people who have, made the transition from Windows to Linux, and who do no gaming or any content creation like what I do, it's probably been a joy for them. They're probably going to be okay. Meaning they don't care about multimedia applications. They just, want to use it to jump on the web, watch Total OS or somebody else, check emails, catch the news, watch a movie, and that's it. That's probably good enough for them to run Linux. And I think that's probably the strength of Linux right now without a global standard. But once you go into multimedia applications, that's where you can run into a problem. So, yeah. If you have completely switched to Linux, let me know. Before I forget, part 2 of this, if you would like to be part of that discussion, let me know. Since the pandemic started, it's been impossible to get a bunch of people, like say 10 people on the same page, on the same schedule, for a discussion about anything. If you would like to join me as a guest, let me know in the comments below. You do not have to be a supporter of the channel. Of course, if you are, thank you. And we'll talk about this in part 2. You can be part of that discussion of the topic, do we need a global standard Linux desktop? We do. And I'll get more in-depth in part 2 of this poll. Ubuntu is probably the most well-known of the Linux systems over the years, as they were really the first company, that being canonical, to try and bring a Linux desktop to the masses, and they are to be commended for that. All of the developers for that. It's unfortunate, I think, that they dropped Unity and switched to the GNOME desktop, which is one of the worst desktop environments for beginners. There are only 2 GNOME desktop based OSs that I like. That is Zorin OS and Pop OS. They're still slower than Windows, but they are usable. Yeah. Joseph said we need a Linux distro to be compatible with all hardware. Ubuntu and Fedora come close. Okay. Once again, I think having a global standard as a choice would just add to the choices of Linux versus taking it away. I know a lot are afraid that if you do that, it'll destroy Linux and the choice as well. Chromebooks are a global Linux standard. Linux is still flourishing, right? Chromebooks have been around 10 years. They work great based off of Gen 2 Linux. And, you know, since Chromebooks have come out, Ubuntu has not died. Linux Mint has not gone away. Arch has not gone away. The Linux community still thrives because Chromebooks are a choice to use it or not to use it. At least that's how I see it as a Windows and Linux user. Speaking of Fedora, the Amazon Linux 2022 has launched on GitHub. I believe that is based on Fedora, if you are interested. If you are interested in getting a Chromebook, now is probably the best time to shop. A lot of great deals out there starting at $99. Of course, for $99, don't expect a lot. However, if all you want to do is just browse the web and watch Total OS videos and listen to podcasts, they're perfectly fine. Very low maintenance, virtually no bugs. Chromebooks represent the potential power of the Linux desktop for the masses. I just wish we had more. Let's see, we have 88th bus stop in the house. That's a lot of bus stops. How are you? Welcome. I think having a package manager that can be used as a wrapper over any other type of package manager with standard commands that can use any of the package managers under the hood. Yeah, basically anything to make life easier. You know, I think the Linux philosophy should be technology making life easier. That should be the motto for Linux. Freedom as in making your life, freedom to make your life easier. At least that's how I see it. So, yeah. Let me transition here to the chat. Thank you once again to all of you stopping in this morning. If you missed any of this, you can listen to this, watch this on the replay. I also have these podcasts on platforms such as Spotify if you like to listen. Yes, Pop OS is ditching GNOME and Solus is converting from GTK. Do you think Zorin OS should switch to KDE Plasma? Joseph, that's a good question. Right now, I don't know. Plasma might be easier for beginners than GNOME. If they switch to Plasma, I would be cool with that. I would probably take a look at it, but I don't know. Joseph, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Francisco is in the house. Good morning. But isn't standardization built from the ground up? The beast is too big now. I'm not sure what you're trying to say, Francisco. Chromebooks are a Linux standard. Gentoo Linux based, of course. They are a global Linux standard. They work fine. They've added to the choice of Linux-based systems. I'm not sure what you mean. Having a global standard Linux desktop, once again, I personally don't care how it's built, what it is based on. It could be based on Arch Linux, which of course is now for beginners. It could be based on Debian. To me, it would not matter, because if it was true global standard, I know it would work. I know you could walk into your Walmart or Best Buys of the world and buy that desktop knowing it comes with the warranty and knowing that it would work. If it would be truly a global quality standard. So yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean, Francisco. Maybe you can clarify, but I think what's going on in the community now is there's a fear or a concern that having a global Linux standard would destroy Linux. First of all, that's impossible. There are too many users. There was a fear that having a global standard would destroy the choice of having a type of Linux. I think it's the opposite. It would add to the choice. Once again, if we had a global standard, you have a choice of not using it, right? What I'm saying is it would just make it easier for billions of Windows users to say, hey, I can go to Walmart or Best Buy, Office Max or ABC store and buy this system knowing that it's probably going to work, you know. And a Linux gaming computer for about $1,000 I think is fair. I think that would be fair, right? You guys tell me. Ultimately, standardization means free of bugs, knowing your system is going to work, little maintenance, secure. I think those are pretty cool features. So Joseph, you're into the Garuda Linux KDE theme. Garuda has its own latte widgets not found in the KDE store. Okay. Francisco says your idea is super great, but standardization after so much time, Linus wasn't interested from the beginning. If you're talking about Linus Torvalds, no, he's very disappointed actually that we don't have a global standard. He did an interview back in 2019. Linus Torvalds, of course, being the father of modern-day Linux, he's very disappointed about the fragmentation of Linux after 25 plus years, and he loves Chromebooks. So, yeah, maybe that's true. He was not interested when he first created the Linux kernel, but a lot has changed. Yeah, so that I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. But it's on YouTube. Yeah, I think there's a couple of videos of him talking about fragmentation, Linux, mentioning Chromebooks. Standardization won't destroy the growth of Linux. When you get into a car, you expect to see the steering wheel and windshield in certain places. It doesn't stifle the development. It enhanced it. This is from 88 Bus Stop. I totally agree. If you get into a bus, you expect the wheels to run right and not fall off, right? Because it is a quality standard. So I drink to you. I'm drinking tea this morning, 88th Bus Stop. Thank you for saying that. Here's to you, my friend. Cheers. That's one way of looking at it. Yes, Ubuntu has great driver support for most newer hardware. Yes. But once again, problems with printers, gaming, multimedia. Really, the only way to solve this is to have a global standard. If a Linux newbie installs, like Linus Tech Tips, okay? If a Linux newbie coming from Windows installs a Linux-based system and has so many problems, can you really blame him if he has the problems? Now, if we had a global standard and I tell that newbie, install this ABC Linux desktop because this is the standard, and that newbie refuses to install that and still installs something on his own and has problems, then it is completely that newbie's fault, 100%. But if my neighbor installs, say, Manjaro based on Arch because somebody told him to and has all the problems, and he starts complaining, why are we blaming him? He has no standard to go by. Yes, I can go over his house, help him do it, help him fix things, but that's not the point. I think people would enjoy the satisfaction of doing something on their own, but they need a guide. They need a standard. You're welcome, Bus Stop. Thank you for mentioning or expanding on that issue of standardization. Manjaro tries to be a gaming standard but constantly has issues, especially with the most recent update. Once again, if you are a gamer, stay away from Linux. Just don't do it. Linux is capable of gaming, but honestly, just don't do it. You know, I have been able to get my Ubuntu Mate just where I want it for doing this, podcasting, chatting. It works great. You know, but you know, if you look at a lot of personalities on YouTube, and I mean, you know, speakers with millions of subscribers, you know, they won't even touch Linux. It's pretty much all Mac. Most of it is on Mac machines. It's for a reason. Now, can they all be stupid? I don't think so. They won't even touch Linux. Linus, LTT, has a global following, is trying Linux. It doesn't look good. It's not his fault. You can't blame him. Without that standard to go by, you know, as Bus Stop says, without something to prevent the wheels from falling off, how can you blame Linus for all the problems he's had? It just doesn't make sense. So, you remember your coworker ditching CentOS after IBM took over Red Hat. And tried using OpenSUSE. He had a lot of issues because he thought that since OpenSUSE uses RPMs, that'd be easy to switch. Not necessarily. Shadow can game on Linux just fine. Very good. The big sin here is that everybody wants to reinvent the wheel. Yeah, the problem is when you have so many forks, everything gets forked up, if you know what I mean. Joseph says, Garuda Linux is becoming the new Manjaro. Okay, interesting. I don't game that much on a PC in general. In Linux, I'll play Super Tux Kart. Windows, I'll play Asphalt Airborne racing game. How cool would it be to walk into a computer store or a Walmart here in the States? You walk in the back where they have TVs, computers, and you see a Mac, you see a couple of Chromebooks, Windows, and then to the right you see, what shall we call it? If we had a Linux global standard, what can we call the Linux desktop? Let's call it the Constellation desktop, based on, we'll say, Arch Linux. How cool would it be to walk into a Walmart, see something new called the Constellation PC based off of Linux? How cool would that be? I'd say a gaming computer, say for $1,000. How cool would that be? Would that destroy the choice for Linux? I think it just would add to it. Ramsey is in the house. Welcome, sir. It feels counterintuitive that the user friendliness is only up until the welcome screen and not past that. Well, that's not entirely true, but I see your point. Yeah, it does feel counterintuitive that the user friendliness is only up to welcome to Linux, then you have run into problems. Once again, if you use beginner friendly systems such as Ubuntu Mate, your Linux Mints, the Zorins, you should be okay. But just don't game on it or try to run gaming as a newbie. Walmart and Best Buy should sell laptops with Ubuntu and Fedora pre-installed. They should. The problem is they have the GNOME desktop. That's horrible for beginners. Yeah, that's my only question about that. Otherwise, sure. I'm just saying it would be cool to walk into a Walmart or Best Buy and see the Constellation Linux desktop. Never have to worry about ransomware or, stuff like that. Over the years, there's been talk of the year of the Linux desktop. It's never happened. And it's been a disappointment. I've been doing this. I've been running Linux since 2006. And while Linux has gotten better, much better for beginners, it's just not there yet as a global standard, as a quality standard, compared to your Macs and Windows. Those of you who are new here, Ramsey, I'm not sure if you've been on the chat before. I don't recall. Welcome to the stream. You say that you also mean that newbie-friendly focused distros are newbie until you are forced into the terminal. Well, your systems like Linux Mints, Zorins, and stuff like that. I don't think they force you into the terminal. Once again, if you're not going to do gaming, I don't think you have to use the terminal. In my Ubuntu Mate, very, very, very seldom do I go into the terminal. I once cracked the joke that the only terminal I like is the terminal at the Orlando International Airport. As far as terminals go. Anyway. Zorin OS is a more traditional style GNOME desktop. I'm running Zorin OS 16 Pro. You can change the desktop layouts, which is nice in the Pro edition. So Zorin has made it easier for newbies as far as the GNOME desktop, but it's just not a good choice for. It's just the GNOME shell has been around now 11 years and it's still not there. I mean, how long does it take to fix something? I don't know. You guys tell me. I first started off with Ubuntu back in 06. And it really wasn't until 4 years later, till I started using Zorin, that I really saw the potential for all this. Went back to Ubuntu with Unity. I thought Unity was great. Of course, in 2017, Ubuntu switched to GNOME, and that was pretty much the end of Ubuntu for me. Oh, it has been a while. Ramsey says it's been a while. Toss, glad to see you're still at it. Not many welcome back. Yeah, Ramsey. You know, it's been rough, man. Ever since the pandemic started, it's trying to get a lot of people on either live to join me or on the chat. It's been a challenge. I do these shows at different times because I know people live in different time zones. But it's been a challenge. Yeah. Until we get back to normal. That being said, thank you for stopping by. Once again, thanks to all of the supporters of Total OS. If you would like to support the live shows, check the links below through Patreon and PayPal. I would like to continue this next year. Luckily this year, thanks to you who support the channel, we were able to get Total OS fully funded for the entire year, thanks in part to you, so thank you again. Cinnamon is more noob-friendly. Linux Mint would be a great choice for OEM computers. Yes, I would have to agree. Linux Mint would be great also. I prefer the Mate desktop, but I think Cinnamon would be fine also. Yeah, I think after Ubuntu, I went from Ubuntu to Linux Mint, then to Zorin, back to Ubuntu, then switched to finally Ubuntu Mate. I distro hopped for 10 years. Went through a lot of bugs in those years, but I learned a lot. Fluffy Cloud 331 is in the house. Well, hello, Fluffy Cloud. How are you? This computer, this stream that I'm doing now is on a 10-year-old Lenovo desktop, and I dual boot between Windows 11 and Zorin OS 16 Pro. Zorin OS 16 Pro is fantastic, but Windows 11 is faster. That's all because of the GNOME desktop. Let me see if I can show you the desktop real quick here, if I can transition. There we go. I think you guys can see this, but yes, this doesn't run too bad speed-wise on a, this has the original Western Digital hard disk drive. And still runs pretty good. Now, I don't have this in full resolution. It does sputter a bit, but it runs pretty good, all things considered, so yeah. All right, I'll stick around for a few more minutes and we'll wrap this up. It's 10 a.m. here locally, and I think I'm going to start my day to have some breakfast to get started. If you missed any of this, you can listen to this on the replay. And we'll do a follow-up to this. If you, once again, if you would like to be part of the final discussion for the Global Standard Linux Desktop, a live show, you can be a guest. Let me know in the comments below. And I would like to get 9 people on, me being number 10, and I'll send you an invite if you would like to be part of that show. You do not have to be a supporter of the channel to join. Usually only supporters can join me, but in this situation, this fairly important topic, if you would like to be if you like to be a guest on that live chat, you can remain anonymous if you wish, and maybe you'll get an invitation. Let me know. So Joseph, you have a 6-year-old desktop running Arch, KDMX, and Linux Mint 19. Okay. Yeah, the Arch should be lightweight. XFCE is lightweight. Cinnamon is generally not a lightweight desktop environment. However, if your computer is fast enough, you should be okay. this computer here, I'm running this now. If I decide to keep it, I should upgrade this to an SSD. And I'm going to need to get a graphics card. I can't run this in full screen resolution. I get black bars around the corners. It doesn't have a graphics card in this one, but just a simple low-end graphics card would be enough. Shadow says, for better or for worse, Linux is getting more attention for sure. I won't use Windows until they stop spying, forcing things. As far as the privacy issue goes, unfortunately, Shadow, that is the entire web. It's just the nature of the web. So, yeah, I wish things were not that way. But, sure. Linux is going to be more private in general until you get on the web. And then everything changes. But, yeah. Yeah, Windows 10, you know, it seems like everything changed with Windows 10 in terms of privacy. But, yeah, Windows 11, I think somebody said Windows 11 doesn't collect as much data as Windows 10. I don't know if that is true, but it's certainly faster. So, yeah. All right, last comments here. I think I will have me some breakfast and we'll wrap this up. When will the show be? Unfortunately, you work third shift. Part 2 of this, I don't know. It'll probably be on a weekend. Yeah, I don't know. Make sure you are subscribed and you click the notification bell so you know. Obviously, if you're invited to join us, I'll send you an email. Your emails are private, by the way. I don't, make those public, of course. But it'll probably be on the weekend, not a weekend morning like this. These Sunday mornings are generally podcast format. It's just me. I don't show my face or nothing. But we'll probably do the follow-up to this on a weekend. Once I can confirm we have 9 guests, hopefully. It's been a challenge in this pandemic, but yeah. So Windows 11 collects the same. They just hide it better, Shadow? Okay. Yeah, the follow-up to this, Ramsey, will most likely be on a weekend. Friday, Saturday night, I'm not sure. Yeah. Maybe an afternoon, maybe a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon is possible. So, yeah, like I said, I would like to have a total of 10 people on, including myself, to talk about this global standard and why we should have one. All right, I think we'll wrap this up for this morning. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Of course, again, if you missed any of this, you can watch this on the replay. Again, we will have a follow-up to this with some guests on, hopefully, and talk about this, what I believe to be is an important topic. If you have made the complete switch from Windows to Linux, I think that's great. But yeah, we definitely need a global standard to make it much, much easier for the potential billion users who currently use Windows to at least try and switch over to a form of Linux to make it much easier for them and not run into the usual problems in switching over from Windows to a Linux-based system. If you are new to this, you may want to check out Ubuntu Mate. It's spelled Mate. It is my current Linux standard. It just works. It's simple to use. Easy desktop environment, lightweight. Thoroughly enjoy using it. Another possible choice might be a Linux Mint or Zorin OS. If you want something fancier looking, check out the Zorin OS desktop. Those are all going to be free downloads. The Zorin OS 16 Pro, I believe it's $39.99 if you want a system that's fully loaded. It's well worth it. It's stable. It works. Just make sure you have a faster computer if you're running a GNOME desktop. Alright guys, thanks again. I will catch you on the next one. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your Thanksgiving turkey if you have any left. Try not to eat too much, right? And I'll catch you on the next one. Arrivederci. Take care.